Welcome to the Cash Car Convert Podcast, Episode 20.
You're listening to the Cash Car Convert Podcast with James Kinson.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cash Car Convert Podcast. My name is James Kinson and I am the Cash Car Convert. This is the podcast where cash cars are cool and auto debt is dangerous to your financial future. On this episode of the podcast, I want to spend a little time going back in history, talking a little bit more about my history. And I guess, most people say everybody has a story. So I want to give a bit more of my backstory. And I'm hoping that some of you out there who may be dealing with some of the things that I dealt with will, be able to see themselves in these stories and understand that they too can make a difference in their own lives and make a change for the better. I want to start when I was in the 7th grade. My family had just moved to a new school district, and I wasn't very happy about the move. We had moved from a nicer house to a lesser house and to what I deemed to be a poorer neighborhood. And even in this poorer neighborhood, my family, didn't have enough money. And I don't mean that we didn't have food on the table and that we didn't have clothes to wear, but what I'm saying is I didn't have the right clothes to wear. And on top of that, I had made some decisions earlier in my childhood that led me not to be a good student. I wasn't a very good athlete. I had asthma pretty badly, and I was also very small for my age. So during that 7th and 8th grade time frame, I was about 4'7", weighed about 75 pounds, was asthmatic, made bad grades, and me and my family didn't have a lot of money. And so I came to a realization when I was that age as I walked the halls of my middle school, and I decided that there were some people in this world who were meant to have nice things and to be successful and to be athletic and to be good looking, and I determined that, I wasn't one of those people, and my family, wasn't that kind of family. I don't know really how to describe why I came to that. I guess I was just in an area of depression from the move I didn't want to make, and I went through a really bad year of my asthma that year. I was very sick and, had a lot of challenges. My parents took me to the doctor multiple times thinking that there might be something more serious wrong. Luckily, there wasn't. But I went through that struggle for quite a while, and slowly over time, things started to happen that changed my mindset, and they happened slowly. So it wasn't until I was in high school that I took a class where I had a particular teacher who believed in me, and he gave me extra work and extra support, and he spent extra time with me to try to help me know that I could do more than I was doing. And it really did have an impact on me. And it didn't impact me, across the board. It didn't change everything about me, but it did help me to start to believe. And that's the way I think some of these things happen. They happen in small doses. And so in high school, I made that little bit of a transition to believe that, hey, maybe things could be different. Maybe I was smarter than I thought, and maybe I could do the work and make good grades. But the challenge was for me at that point, I still didn't want to do the work. And so I did graduate from high school, and I did it near the bottom of my class, but I got the diploma and moved on. Nobody in my family had ever gone to college, so right out of college, I started working as a painter with my dad. He had a small painting company of his own. It was just him, and so I started working with him, and I had done that some summers previously. So I did that for a little while, and then I had some friends who went to work at a styrofoam processing plant. And it was a really crazy job. You worked 12 hours a day, 4 days a week, and then you had 4 days off. And the shifts rotated from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. for 1 week. The next week you would work from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. So sleep patterns were completely messed up, and it was pretty crazy. But there was something interesting there that had happened, and that is, as I worked in that job, for the first time, I really interacted with a lot of people who were college graduates that weren't school teachers, right? So I'm looking at them in a different way, and I'm watching how they interact with things, and I'm watching how they work. And I was really struck by this, and I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way, But I realized that I was smarter than some of these people. And yet they had college degrees, and I didn't think I was smart enough to do that. But I was. And so I eventually tried to go to college, and that didn't work out. There was a bust, and my dad and I got into a fight at home, and that's a whole nother story. But suffice it to say, I did not finish that semester. And so for the next few years, I went part-time to college and, dropping out as much as I went. Anytime there was a sport that I could play that conflicted with school, I would wind up dropping out. And eventually I went back to being a painter because I could make more money as a painter with regular, 8 to 5 kinds of hours than I could doing just about anything else. And I was not happy doing that. I knew that was just a means to an end. And I was married at that point, and my wife and I had a plan that she would go to school and finish college, and then I would go after her. Well, when we became pregnant with our first child, and she was so sick she couldn't go to school, she decided along the way that she didn't want to go back to college. And so I was kind of wondering, okay, what are we going to do? I'm working as a painter. I can make more money doing that than anything else I can think of. I didn't know what we were going to do. Well, that got sorted out for me when 1 month before my oldest was born, I was laid off from my job. And the reason for that is my the people I worked for, who were great guys, they had put me on a salary as a way to keep me on, because for those of you who are painters out there, you know that the work is up and down. If you work outside and the weather's bad, then you may go through stints where you may not earn much money at all. And I needed a regular income, so these guys wanted me to stick around enough that they would find work for me to do and keep me busy, and therefore I was earning a set salary per week. But they went through a really dry spell, and they could not sustain that salary. So 1 month before my son was born, I was laid off from my job. And I really didn't know what I was going to do in the beginning. And I don't know really how to explain why, but I had a real peace about it. I knew that something good was going to come out of it. So sure enough, I went home and my wife and I talked about it, and I told her that, I wasn't going to be a painter anymore, that I was going to go to college, and that for, the next 3.5 years, we would be really poor, but our child would not know that poverty. He would be too young to realize how poor we were. And by the time he was old enough to kind of realize what was going on, hopefully I would be out of school with a good job, and I would be able to provide for him in such a way that he would never know poverty. So I did. I started back to school, and I went every summer, spring, fall, every semester, and took classes. And I went what seemed like all the time. And I had a really good stroke of luck along the way. I was able to get on with a large computer manufacturer as part of their co-op program. And I went from making $3.35 an hour in the computer lab at the school to making $7.25 an hour working part-time for this company. And I was going to be working 20 hours a week. So it was a really good start for me. It helped me out a lot. And I should probably go back and say that when I was working as a painter, and my wife was also doing some part-time work at the time, we were making about $18,000 a year. And the first year after I was laid off and we committed to me going to college, we made about $8,000. So we had a drastic drop in our income. And we suffered through, a horrendous period of having to deal with debt. We had a lot of debt at that time for our income. And when our income went down like it did, it took, a couple of years to get all of that paid down. We had a lot of harassment from creditors, and obviously we owed the money, so they were just doing their job. But that was a really tough period. And I think the low point was for me. We were watching a 13-inch color TV that had been given to us, and we had cable on it, of all things, very basic cable. So our bill was about $25 a month, and I still remember so vividly the cable man coming to the house, knocking on the door, and saying, "Hey, I need to get payment, or I'm supposed to remove your cable." And I looked at him and I said, "Well, I do have the $25 I think I can scrape together here, so I'll give you $25, but you might as well just take the cable out because I'm not going to be able to afford it next month either." So we went through a tough patch there, but I did go to school. I worked hard. I got good grades. I started working 20 to 30 hours a week while I was taking a full load in the fall and spring semesters, and I would take 3 to 6 hours at a pop in the summer semesters. And in 3.5 years, I did get everything knocked out. I graduated in December of 1986 at about 29 and a half years old, so way later than so many people. So if you're out there and you think you're too old to go back to school, you're not. It's never too late to make a change in your life. And I don't know how my life would have been different if I hadn't been laid off. This story's about more than that. This is more about changing your mindset and starting to believe that you can make changes in your life. If you're out there and you feel like you're supposed to be poor and you're always supposed to be that way, you're not. You just have to change your mindset, start thinking of yourself differently, and you too can turn your life around. I'm going to fast forward a bit now. I had a bad church experience many years ago, and I want to get to a story that's more recent. But when I was 25 years old, I had a bad church experience, and it really kind of broke my spirit for that sort of thing. And I saw some people that I had known for 10 plus years that I believed to be great Christian people do some things that really rocked my faith. And for those of you who are Christians out there, I know you're not supposed to put your faith in people, but I was still young and it just shook me. Well, I never really got over that, and I've been in and out of church ever since, but I never really was able to strongly connect again. And my wife and I, in January of last year, started going to a new church, and I was able to have my faith restored. And one of the things that was outcropping of that is that throughout my life, I've really struggled with a scarcity mentality. Because I had so little growing up, I really felt like I needed to, buy things that would show off, any success I might have. And so I tended to always kind of err in that way. And also because of that, I never felt like I could afford to give all that much. Even though my income rose and rose and rose, and I've been more blessed than I ever had any right to believe I would be when I was in that 7th grade year. I felt like I didn't have anything to give. And going to this new church, all of that changed. I don't know how to explain it other than just say that God touched my heart and softened it from all those years of struggling. And it allowed me to accept the fact that I could be successful and be blessed, and I didn't have to feel guilty about it. I used to kind of feel that way, that I didn't understand why, coming from where I came from, why I had been the one who was able to change my life the way I did. And I now truly believe that I had to learn those lessons along the way that I did. And 2 Corinthians 9:8, I think, says it best. And it's in the New International Version. It says the following: "And God is able to bless you abundantly, so that in all things, at all times, having all you need, you will abound in every good work." And the thing that struck me about this is that God has blessed me so that I can bless other people. And I think God wants the same thing for you. I know I haven't talked a lot about God in this podcast. I'm trying to help you get out of debt and, cash cars and all those things. But I think this is really important. I know it changed the way I think and the way I feel. And again, this was a long, process for me, a lifelong process. And what I'm hoping is that those of you who are out there will understand that if you're successful today and you feel guilty about it for some reason, despite the hard work that you've done to get where you are, don't feel guilty about it. Understand that you've been blessed for a reason. You've been given the skills that you have for a reason, and you need to use those to bless others. For me now, my wife and I, we're doing something that we had never done before, and we're tithing. And we're giving over and above the tithe. And I don't say that to brag about where we are. I say that to tell you that it's a heart change. And when you start living with giving, it changes your heart. You have more generosity in your life. You just feel better about yourself and your surroundings. And it's changed so much about me. And I don't know that I would have started this podcast or my blog if I wasn't doing that, if I didn't feel like I was worthy, I still struggle with that sometimes, the imposter syndrome. Who am I to be telling people how to buy cars or how to get out of debt? And all I can say to that is that, I've been through some things, and all I'm trying to do is relay some of those stories and to bring on other people who've had other things happen in their life that might be inspirational, or bring on other companies that have tools on the internet that might help you be a better cash car buyer, or in this case, my own story. And I felt like this was a story that I needed to get out there. Everybody has a story. Well, this is mine, and this was my journey from a kid in the 7th grade who didn't understand why, but somehow accepted the fact that he was never supposed to be anything more than he was, to a person who's been so blessed now. I have a wonderful family, a wife I love dearly, 3 children that I just love so much and I want to do anything for. And really, through the blogging and podcasting that I've done, I've got so many new friends. I feel more blessed in friendship than I ever have. And I just want to say that you too can have all these things and more, but you have to start making a change in your life. Dave Ramsey talks about, financial success is 20% head knowledge and 80% the way you behave. And what I'm hoping is that through this episode of the Cash Car Convert podcast, you'll look at the person in the mirror looking back at you and cut them some slack. But at the same time, start to believe in them. Start to know that you can make a change. And it starts with small changes. Don't wait until you've been laid off from your job to make a change in your life. Put together a plan, and we've talked about it before, Michael Hyatt's life plan. It's, I think that's an awesome place to start, is to figure out, starting at the end of your life and looking back, how do you want it to be? If you were writing the obituary of your life, how would you write it? Some people will say, make yourself the star of your own movie. I don't care how you have to think about it, but start thinking about your life differently. It's a journey. And you do have to enjoy the journey, by the way. And one of the major things I took away from the time after my layoff, when I was going to school and working towards that goal of getting out of debt and getting a college degree, one of the main things I took away from that experience is that I knew I could do it again if I had to. I did never want to, but I knew that I had the intestinal fortitude to do the hard yards and do what I needed to do. So I want to tell you, you do as well. Deep down inside of you, you may not believe that you do, but you do. So with that, I'm going to stop rambling on here and tell you that, I love you, God loves you, I want the best for you, and that's why I'm talking to you about how to buy a cash car, why you ought to stop the cycle of auto debt and start to look at your life differently. Look at it through a different lens, and you can change your life. It may not happen overnight, it may take some hard yards, but I believe in you, because I know if I can do it, I know you can do it. Thank you for listening to the Cash Car Convert. This is James Kinson, and I want to help you buy a cash car and kick auto debt to the curb. Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Cash Car Convert podcast. If you're enjoying the Cash Car Convert, I would appreciate it if you could go out to iTunes and subscribe. I'm going to continue to try to bring you content that's relevant to you and your life, to help you improve your situation and to make better decisions and live more intentionally. Also, if you like this episode or any of the others that you've listened to, please go out to iTunes and leave me a rating and review. It helps me get noticed and keeps us up there in iTunes where people can have an opportunity to find us. You can find the show notes for this episode at cashcarconvert.com/020. Again, that's cashcarconvert.com/020. If you'd like to contact me directly, please reach out to me on Twitter at cashcarconvert. Again, that's at cashcarconvert. If you're going through something right now with your car, please feel free to ask me a question. You can do that via my website, cashcarconvert.com. There's a little bar on the side. It's a speak pipe, and you can leave me a message there. Or you can email me at cashcarconvert@gmail.com. And again, I'd love to hear from you. If you have a comment on the show, if you have a question for me, I'd be more than happy to do that. I would still like to do a show at some point in the future based on questions I get from listeners. So, I'd really appreciate getting your feedback and any questions you might have. So that would be really good. With that, this is the Cash Car Convert signing off. Hope you have a great week. God bless.